Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Oh, it's good to be back. I know it's been a minute, but I always enjoy our conversations.
It has been a hot minute. Truly. I think you've talked to my athletes in VHA one time before you've been on the podcast last, but I
Hmm.
am excited to talk to you for many reasons, but mostly because you've entered this space of like human development and coaching. And yes, you're still a hitting coach, and we'll get into some of that, but I'm excited to kind of dive into the player development piece because a lot of us take for granted just the experience of being an athlete, and there's such high pressure now, and athletes aren't able to handle pressure, I feel like, as well as when we first started coaching. I don't know, do you feel the same way or no?
Yeah, I'm definitely. It's interesting how it's harder for them to process their emotions.
Yeah.
And we can get into the way that the brain works and the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala and all that type of stuff and how um, when blood rushes away from the prefrontal cortex into the amygdala, which is where your emotions lay, you can't logically think as well.
Hmm.
So it's really trying to work through those emotions and be able to find um, how to navigate that to literally keep you more balanced so that you can stay logical in those pressure packed situations.
Hmm. Hmm. Before we dive into all of that, which I'm taking note of, can we just talk about Shohei Ohtani really quick? Because as two hitting coaches here, just seeing what he did, I did not watch the game live. I've only watched um, the highlights. But to see what he did, like he had another multiple home run game, which I think is his
Hmm.
third this postseason. He reached base nine times, which it was a
Hmm.
how many innings did it go into? Like 13, 14? A lot.
18.
18 innings. Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Two full
So,
games.
yeah, insane. Just absolutely insane. Did you see what Shohei said when he was being interviewed at the very end, where he was
Hmm.
like, "So potentially you have the start tomorrow. So how do you feel about that?" And he's like, "I want to go to sleep as soon as possible." But I don't know. Like, I want to talk about Shohei because, I mean, he's kind of an anomaly right now.
Oh, I think he's an anomaly for all time. And
Yeah.
here's the best part. 2 weeks ago, he couldn't hit a baseball. I mean, if you looked at bats from 2 weeks ago, it was flying his shoulder open, flying his head open, bailing out on a curveball in the outside corner. Like, I mean, he looked lost. And then, you know, smoked a double one night, and he's been on ever since.
You know what's crazy though? I don't think he ever was pulled out of the lineup, was he?
Oh no, never,
No, even though he was
never.
in obvious slump.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean that again, and I think and we can dive into leadership as well. I mean, I think that's one of the true testaments of a good leader is um, not being a prisoner of the moment.
Mm, yeah. He never really shows a lot of emotion, which I feel like all Japanese players are the same. Like,
Hmm.
even when I was playing with a few of them, it's like they got out and they kind of just laughed it off and moved on because sometimes you get beat. And I never see him, throwing a bat. I never see
Hmm.
him, getting flustered, you
No,
know?
he's in the dugout filling up water cups for his teammates in between innings.
Yeah. So what does it take to be a player like that? I mean, obviously, again, it's it's hard to compare him to just the average player, right? But what are things that you think we can learn from him to allow us to not give ourselves, not take ourselves so seriously,
Hmm.
because it is a game, even though there's a
I
lot of
think,
pressure in it.
of course, and I think you just alluded to it. I mean, just the Japanese culture in and of itself is a selfless culture. It's a culture of humility and it's a culture of being humble. And it's putting others before yourself a lot of time. And so, to for him, I think last night, I think I was watching, he hit a big double to the opposite field, which was his
Hmm.
first opposite field hit in like a month. And he showed a lot of emotion at second base.
Yep,
And it's really,
excitement.
and it seemed like a lot because he just doesn't do it.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas, part of my issue with the new generation is they celebrate everything, no matter what. Um, you know, get it, but you hitting a double down 10 in the fifth inning, like not really cause for celebration.
Right. I feel that.
Um, and so to see that emotion come out of him, you just know how much it meant to him to see that. And I also think too, there is a humility piece to it, and there's an even keeled piece to it that if I go 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, that's not who I am. And if I go 4 for 4 with 4 bombs, like that's not who I am. I'm probably somewhere in the middle.
Mm,
And being able to really understand who you are in the middle, which, are you attached to the results? No, like we should really be attached to the process. And so really boiling it down to knowing that I approach the same process with a strikeout and a home run, like that's how I create sustainable success over a long period of time.
yeah. And I think a lot of players right now are identifying themselves as the either or, as the
Hmm.
0 for 4 or the 4 for 4. When you're right, like in the reality, like what are your stats the entire season, not just this weekend, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of this is coming to, I guess we're now diving into this. Everybody's posting their stats on social media, like so that coaches can see. And I think that social media and just, I guess, media in general is a big factor as to why we're comparing ourselves to everybody's perfect when, that might have been a 4 for 4 weekend for that kid, but they might have been Shohei and not have been hitting a single ball to opposite field for an entire year, but you just don't know the whole story.
Hmm.
So when it comes to like that comparison or like identifying yourself on one or the other, how do we stick to that process more? And even when things maybe aren't going well for us right now, because Shohei could have easily just been like thrown in the towel because he wasn't doing great. And then, but that day probably led to his day yesterday, you know?
Hmm.
Like, how does this happen to great players?
Well, well, I think going back to, kind of the younger generation and having this platform of showcase and having this platform to show yourself. You and I grew up in a world where you only got publicity if the newspaper put you in the newspaper.
That's true. My grandma has a lot of
Um,
newspaper articles.
yeah. Um, that was it. And you were hoping that somebody was covering the game. You were hoping um, that you had an opportunity to, showcase yourself in front of the right people and they wanted to talk about it. When I was coming up, I was an All-American. I had no idea who anybody was until the list came out in June, after the whole season was over.
Hmm.
And then it's like, oh, that's cool. Hopefully I get to meet Matt, or hopefully I get to meet Dan, or hopefully, but not like it is now, where everybody knows who everybody is, period, end of story. And my thing, I always tell the younger generation, you're so worried about people who are like so like 5, 6, 8, 10 states away from you. But yet I can tell you, I know for a fact that you have a teammate who works harder than you.
Hmm.
And so, I try to pose the question to them, right? Like growing up in New York, being there, being in a different climate, being in a colder climate, knowing that we were going to spend more time indoors than other parts of the country, I knew that there were going to be people better than me just because they had more opportunities to be better than me. But guess what? They weren't going to be in New York and they weren't going to be in the Northeast. And then it got to a point where they weren't going to be in the mid Atlantic or the East Coast, even. So it's just putting that kind of making a deal with yourself in that aspect where you get to understand that, like, what am I in control of? What does my process look like? What are my non-negotiables? And I call it your basics. Like, be brilliant at the basics. And not from an elementary standpoint, but just being able to figure out 3, 4, or 5 things that you can do on a daily, weekly basis at an extremely high level consistently. Watch magic start to happen.
Hmm. How big is it to be on a team too where you're not the best in that regard too? Because I think similarly, being in a cold state, my dad made it very clear that if I was the best one on the team, and this didn't count, like I played rec ball for like a long time, and yes, you're one of the better players on the team, and there's a leadership aspect that I learned definitely in that regard, but especially with travel ball, high level ball, I was always on a team that pushed me, where it had multiple athletes who like were faster than me, stronger than me, and maybe it's just our DNA and what we sought out to pursue in the game that used that for motivation, but kind of like what you said about being around, like being the best at the basics, being the best on your team or trying to be that allows you to level up.
Hmm.
But I see a lot of people right now, there's a lot of talent and a lot of different teams, but when their daughter isn't getting the playing time that they like, it's like, okay, we're going to jump teams so we can get more playing time. But in reality, if you would just grind and work and earn a spot there, you're going to get better where you're at.
100%.
Like, so how do we
I,
balance that? There's a lot of parents here who are like, I want my kid to get playing time, but also I want them to grow. So what would you advise there?
I mean, look, I think that we as parents, and I say we as parents, I have two daughters, 6 and 5. We as parents, we have to set the standard for our children. And if we constantly are making excuses, guess what? Our kids are going to make excuses. If
Hmm.
we are showing resilience and hard work and understanding how to go about the process, guess what? Our kids will follow suit. But I see a lack of resiliency in parents. And then we wonder why our kids who are still learning everything, who are still trying to figure out their life and still trying to figure out how to navigate life, we wonder why they're not resilient. We wonder why they turn the other way when life gets tough. We wonder why they strike out with bases loaded and 2 outs in the bottom of the seventh inning. Because we haven't chosen resiliency. We haven't chosen adversity. We haven't chosen perseverance. And we have those choices every single day. And so if I'm choosing those things and I'm actually working in that environment when I don't need it, and I'm building that skill and I'm building that mental, emotional armor, guess what? When the opportunity presents itself, I'm ready.
What are those everyday opportunities to build resiliency? Things that are relatable to all of us.
I mean, from one standpoint, like, are you growing from a mental standpoint, right? Like, we all have the ability to read, and this is what when we talked about the human development piece. Here's a fun stat for everybody. 10 years ago, 52% of teenagers and young adults read 30 minutes a day for fun. 10 years later, it's down to 22%.
Hmm.
So what are we consuming? Okay. And we're not really, and that's the whole point, is we are consuming. The social media is a feed. We're being fed, but yet we're not processing anything. We're not having conversations on how to process this stuff. So it's just consuming. And so we feel everything, but we process nothing. Okay. And if I'm not reading, guess what also I'm not doing? Learning how to think. There's no critical thinking skills. I'm not learning how to think for myself or think about the situation from all different angles. The other piece is, I know so many athletes who say they want to be good at something and go to the next level, yet they don't watch the next level. They don't watch
I hear
college softball. They don't
I
watch
hear
college
that all the
baseball.
time.
They don't
Hmm.
watch Major League Baseball. I'm sitting there going, wait, hold up. How do you know where you're supposed to go if you're not even looking at the examples that are going to get you there?
Hmm.
So that's what we can do from that standpoint. The other standpoint is physically. How hard am I working out? Am I doing the bare minimum? Or am I really pushing myself? Am I really choosing adversity and choosing those obstacles so that, again, I push through, and now that's a win. And now I can celebrate that win. And I know the process that got me to that win. And now I'm able to repeat that over and over and over and over and over again, so that the next time an obstacle is presented, there's no quit, there's no retreat. Like, the only way is forward. So those
Yeah.
are those are a few examples for me that we can all choose um, on a daily basis. That
I thought of one too as you were saying this is like even just the simple if something in your house breaks, like let's say the coffee machine broke, are we gonna like sit there and yell and like be upset because we don't get our coffee that morning?
Mhm.
Or are we gonna go figure out how to fix it? Or are we just gonna go on Amazon and buy a new one and take the easy way out? Like
Mhm.
I think even this is what your kids see every day.
Mhm.
Like how we respond. And this is so interesting. I have a 2-year-old now. Like he copies everything that I do.
Absolutely.
And, there are times where right now we got a 6-month old and I got a 2-year-old and I got a dog who's another child. And I'll like lash out on the dog because I'm just like, here's the excuse, overstimulated. And then I see my kid and now he's yelling at the dog. I'm like, oh great. What am I creating? But like that's even times for me to figure out, how can I respond better to this? Because my kids are going to do what I'm doing.
And another thing is I practice gratitude every day. We practice gratitude. And gratitude is a muscle that needs to be worked out. It's a skill that needs to be perfected. And you only get better at gratitude if you practice gratitude. And whether I'm giving a keynote in front of a huge audience or a workshop in front of an intimate group, I ask the same question all the time. What are your first couple thoughts in the morning when you wake up? Because we are tethered to those thoughts the rest of the day, whether we like it or not. So I can either wake up and open my eyes and say, wow, thank you for this day. That's 2 gifts right there. And then I swing my legs around the bed and I put them flat on the ground and I lift myself up out of bed. That's 3 gifts before I even done anything.
Mm.
Are you grateful for those 3 gifts? Or is the first thought as soon as your eyes wake up, let me grab my phone. Wow, I can't believe how tired I am today. And then, hey, I wonder what could go wrong today. Well, guess what? You're going to be exhausted and something's about to happen. You know why? Because you're a person dealing with other people, and this is a complicated life. So
Yeah.
these little, I call them little and I call them simple, but they're not easy because we as human beings it's so easy to be negative that it's actually hard to be the opposite. It's hard to be more positive. It's hard to be the victor in what would be a victim situation.
I mean, these are the basics that you mentioned earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
just within sport. I think this is
Mm-hmm.
the fun way you can kind of connect sport with everyday life is that if you're trying to be, brilliant at the basics, that's the basics is the
Mm-hmm.
gratitude. The basics is the everyday stuff that you compile to then make yourself feel like, man, I can do anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, what time do you work out in the morning?
So just because this works for me because of the life and the 2 girls, I'm up at 4:30 every day, and I come downstairs and I take my pre-workout, and then the 30 minutes while I let my pre-workout sink in, that's my time to read. And so whether I switch through the Bible, Stoicism, um, you know, thought-provoking content, if I'm in the middle of wanting to read a fiction book, I'll read, but like it's 30 minutes of reading and just kind of preparing myself for the day. And then I go to the gym, I work out from 5 to 6, and I come home and it's time to be dad.
Yeah. I think what's cool about that is like you've had a whole day before your day too.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say you don't accomplish anything that you had planned to accomplish after that, at least you got the basics in,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And
And
that's
how
why
does
I
that
say, like,
go ahead?
figure out what they are and figure out what you can do consistently at a high level. That way, growth is happening on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Then we can add more layers on top of that. Absolutely.
And you've been doing this for years. Since basically I've known you. This has
Yeah.
been, and I'm sure at the beginning it was really tough. And I'm not saying everybody has to wake up at 4:30. Everybody has their
No.
own life, but it's clearly working. And do you still have days where you don't want to wake up that early?
Oh, there's days where I wake up and I'm literally negotiating with myself. After the gratitude, now it's like really like now it's a negotiation.
Mm.
Come on, man, get out of bed. Come on, man, put your shoes on. I mean, it's if you're not having those conversations, you're not doing it. You're not doing it enough. Um, because there are plenty of days, and I think that's part of the fun parts. And those are some of the days. Those are some of the best workouts. Those are some of the best, you know, days that I'm reading. Those are some of the best days of journaling because I didn't want to at first, but there was clearly a reason to get up and go do it.
Okay, this is funny because I'm now thinking of the days where I didn't want to go hit. When dad was like, hey, we got to go hit. Like, once I
Mm-hmm.
told him I wanted to play at a high level, he's like, all right, well, we're going to hit after dinner. And like, my first thought was, ugh, like, I'm so tired or I have all this homework, which, yes, I think there's a balance of like, make sure you get your homework done before you play.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's only so much daylight in the day. So dad was like, no, we're going to hit. And I can't tell you how many times we went and did that. And I sat there and went, thank God we went out there and hit. Like that was
Yeah.
such a fun day. Or I needed that, you know, and you just never know if you don't show up.
Well, and that's the key is showing up for yourself on a daily basis. And I don't care if this is for the parents, this is for the kids, both. Um, Nothing great can be accomplished without obsession. And there's a question that I pose to people all the time. Are you interested? Are you committed? Or are you obsessed? And there's no wrong answer. But the answer to that question will help level set expectations between me and the player, me and the parent, me and the person I'm coaching, or even just leaders and their employees, coaches and their players. I mean, it lays a foundation of expectation. Because if I'm expecting someone to be obsessed and all they can give me is interested, then I won't have to be as frustrated.
Mm.
And also, that person can't expect to get the same results that the person who's obsessed will get. And if a person tells me they're obsessed, but they're acting interested or committed, that opens up a conversation as well. Because that person's going to show a level of frustration because they're not getting what they want. But yet, that extra work, that extra grind, that extra grit, that extra studying, that's what puts us over the top.
How can coaches relay that to their players when their players say they want things, but they're not acting that way? How can they do that in like a informative way instead of a attacking way? Because I think
Mm-hmm.
there's like a fine line, to be honest. Because
Yeah.
players are going to take it as attacking. But how do we do it effectively, you think?
It's always good to have examples and I don't like to use examples that are too close to home, but I like to show examples of people who worked really hard and got what they wanted, because then you're able to sit there and work with that player and say, hey, let's just sit down one day and figure out where the disconnect is. No different than when I work with a player and they say I want to be a starter and they're on the bench, but we do a time management sheet and it comes out that they spend 21 hours a week playing video games.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're 21 hours a week, you're a really good video game player. And that's great. So I want to use that as an example that if you repurpose that energy into your baseball or your softball, but a lot of girls don't play video games, but just using that as an example of, great, look at all the work you put in to get this, and you're really good at that. Let's rechannel and repurpose that energy into blank, and let's see what we can get.
Mm. You're taking it from like a teamwork standpoint rather than a I need you to do this
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah. Because again, it's a matter of understanding that if we are not as a team, if we're not pulling together, we're pulling apart. So it's getting every person, and that's part of being a really good coach, and that's part of being a really good leader is knowing how to communicate with each one of those individuals. I was the type of guy where a coach could yell at me from across the field and berate me in front of people, and I had no problem. You know why? Because if he was yelling at me, it meant he cared about me. But I played with guys who, if coach did that, they'd crawl into a hole for 3 days.
Mm.
So my coach knew that if he was going to get on this particular type of player, he had to do it in the dugout, whispering with his arm around him. And that's part of being a good coach. Knowing that, does this need to be a team conversation or does this need to be an individual conversation? Does this person get motivated by external force, or does this person, do I need this person really need to truly believe that I believe in them? And now we get to have more of an intimate conversation.
But no matter what, the trust element needs to be there for any of these
Absolutely.
players to listen to you.
Right.
How are
And
you
this is,
building? Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say, how are
No,
you building trust with like the athletes you work with? I know you work in the cages, you don't work with teams specifically
mm-hmm.
that you are coaching. But how do you do that?
I think it's one of a couple ways. One, constantly asking them more about their process than their results, and saying, "Hey, how'd you do this weekend? Pretty good. Well, what does that mean?" And then we get into the nitty gritty of it, and they didn't have a pretty good weekend. And so instead of saying like, "Okay, man, work harder," now it's getting into, "Hey, what did you do leading up to the weekend? What happened during the weekend? And if you knew what happened after the weekend," that's what happens with so many young hitters is they can tell me everything after the weekend. After they've gone 1 for 11, they can be like, "Oh, I was pulling my head out." So now it's diving into that and saying, "Well, where in the weekend did you really know you were pulling your head out?" Well, the first at bat of the second game. Fine. So then why did we go 7 more at bats without being able to make a correction? Oh, because I got up with first and third and I was worried about this. Or I kept getting up with 2 outs and I was worried about this. So like now we're really getting into understanding where their head's at and where that process is. And not anywhere in there is just saying like, you can't strike out. You shouldn't pop up. Like, they know all this stuff.
Hmm.
It's no different than when you go to a game and a kid swings at a pitch at their eyes and the coach at third base is screaming like, "Come on, don't swing at that." That player knows that. That does not to be brought to anybody's attention. So being able to kind of work through and carve out the stuff that we don't need and really get into the stuff that we do so that they can understand like, wow, this my coach really cares about like how I perform the next game, not from a result standpoint, but knowing that if I go into the batter's box with the right approach, taking a good swing at a good pitch, that's the only way I can have a chance at success. So that's one way. And the other way too is to literally ask them about other aspects of their life. How's basketball going? How's school going? What's your favorite class in school right now? What's your least favorite class in school right now? What are you proud of? What do you think you need to work harder at? How's your sister? How's your brother? Have you done anything fun lately? Like building the relationship as two humans that happen to just be working on hitting a baseball.
Yeah. And humanizing yourself too, I feel like works along with it,
Yeah.
because then they start going, well, this is what I did this weekend. How was your weekend? And you're like, well, they care about me too. Like,
Yeah.
not that we do it for that reason, but when it's just two humans talking, you get a lot more out of them.
Right. And that leads into, we'll talk macro for a minute. Okay. Two polls that really always strike me. One is that 68 to 72% of employees believe that their managers, leaders are disingenuous and inauthentic because the only time that they talk to them is when I'm in trouble or they need something. The other poll that hits me is 70% of employees believe that their bosses are somewhat poor. So I look at it from two standpoints. A, as adults, as parents, as coaches, we are yearning for good leadership. So let's work on it. And also, I look at it when I look at my 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, you have such an opportunity to learn how to be a leader on your team, at your school, in your environment. Because again, that data is undeniable. So let's do something about it. And also on the other side, because of that, the bar is set so low.
Hmm.
So being able to just do anything above the bar in terms of self-growth and having a growth mindset and learning how to be a leader and learning how to maybe understand that this needs to be said right now and nobody might like me for it, but that's okay because it's going to make a greater impact on the whole than me worrying about if somebody likes me or not. These are all just such opportunities for this age group right now to be able to sit there and build this life skill that they'll need forever.
What are the top things that you see in leaders that, again, is just above the bar, even though the bar is low, that you see them doing? And this could be relatable to anybody, the player,
Hmm.
the coach, the parent. Like, what are these leaders doing? And I'm sure you've alluded to a few of them already, but like, if we can give us like a small list that we can just kind of do a little check in, I think that'd be helpful.
So the first thing is what you alluded to before, the humanizing of the relationship. Um, there's never a bad time for a 5 minute micro check-in because again, it goes back to what you said, trust. If I'm building trust when I don't need it, it will be there when I do.
Mm. Mm. Can you say that again?
Yes. When I'm building trust when I don't actually need it, it will be there when I actually do need it.
So good.
And so it's being able to sit there and say, "Hey, Ashley, how was your weekend?" "Oh, you know what, Chris? My baby's just kind of regressing in sleep right now. He was doing awesome. He's just regressed a little bit. We and me going, oh yeah, you know what? I've been there. I remember it's just like, but I always remember that every time they regressed, like growth was happening. They're just becoming more aware and they're becoming more of a human being and they're becoming more of a person. Well, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later, I show up to Ashley again and I go, hey, Ashley, how's your little guy doing? Oh, you know what, man? He used to wake up 2 times a night. Now it's just 1 time a night. Now, Ashley goes home and tells Ben, I can't believe, like, you wouldn't believe what my manager leader, Chris, I can't believe he even remembered that. Like, that was just such in passing. And so, like, trust is being built. So now we fast forward 8, 9 weeks later, when now we have a crisis and we have like a really important thing going on. And I come up to Ashley and I go, Ashley, look, we have this huge thing right now. The deadline's tonight at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry that you might have to stay later, but I truly believe you're the person to get this done. Are you willing to do this? What's Ashley going to say?
100%.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of those ways. Okay. Another way that a leader can grow and be a good leader is helping the team understand that we all need to be in alignment, heading towards the same North Star, and being very crystal clear on the standards that it's going to take for us all to get there. And every team has to have three things. They have to have conflict, they have to have communication, and then they have to have consistent alignment.
The three C's.
And the problem is that so often guess what out of those three things, which one do you think is the most avoided?
Conflict.
Conflict, absolutely. Okay, because we believe that conflict equals drama and drama should be avoided. No, like conflict and drama are two different things. We should have conflict of interest. We should have conflict of ideas. We should be able, because I say it all the time, what does conflict create? Friction. And what does friction create? Fire. And who doesn't want to play with fire? And who doesn't want a team fired up? And so going back, a great example, going back to what you were saying before, like competition within your team. There's nothing wrong with having somebody on your team that you are trying to chase. Whether it's in a corporation on a sales team or on my team, I'm hitting 400, she's hitting 450. Why can't I hit 450? And that's the beauty of baseball and softball that I love so much, is that this isn't a time sport where only a certain amount of points are going to be scored that day. And if our team averages 40 points and Ashley averages 25 of them, there's only 15 points to go around. Baseball and softball, the beauty of baseball and softball is if we all get 4 at bats, we can all go 4 for 4. But no one looks at it that way.
Yeah,
So being
a
able,
lot of people take it as like not everyone can eat at the table. It's like, what?
not this sport.
Why? Right. But that's the fun part too about like watching this. I love postseason baseball. There's just more fire you see right now than ever. And like, I'm just thinking about, Freddie Freeman walk-off hit, right? Like, there are games where Freddie Freeman is the worst looking player in the lineup. And that's just
Yeah,
how it goes.
yeah.
But he stays consistent with his work and he just keeps showing up and like trusting, some days are going to work, some days aren't. Like, it's not that big a deal. But we make it such a big deal.
Hmm. You know,
Man.
I think we get really caught up in life and it being super flashy, and I'm waiting for the next best thing. And I always I always use like food as an example. Okay, I'm not a gourmet chef, so my meals are going to be simple and boring, but I'm still going to eat. But guess what? When I want a really fancy dinner, I go out and get it. But if I sat at home and brought myself into a frenzy because I thought every next meal was supposed to be the greatest, most fun meal that I saw on Instagram, and I have to repurpose it and I have to recreate it. That's exhausting because I'm not capable of doing that.
And you're just beating yourself up over and over. That's like me trying to cook chicken right now. I overcook it every time. I'm like, I'm so over chicken. Sorry, this tangent. But I
Yeah.
totally understand. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna keep trying to figure out the chicken because it's not gonna I'm not gonna be able to sit well if I don't figure out how to make it. But then when I do figure out how to make it, it's like that's all I'm gonna eat probably. But yeah. I think that's the fire though, and that's what everybody here needs to find. Like, what is their piece that they are willing to go keep trying? And
Hmm.
like, because that, if you're a parent, you're doing that, your kid sees that, right? Like, you're not great at this one thing. I don't know, like pick anything really, and like keep trying to make it, blah blah blah. And like your kids are gonna see that you're working really hard for this thing, and it gives you permission to.
Hmm. Is he sleeping or oh, he's moving?
He's crying.
Is that our cue?
I don't know. I wanted to end with something fun because it's Halloween week.
Sure.
All right, give me a couple more minutes. I think he'll be fine.
Hmm.
I can watch. I'm watching him. He's very mad at me. But I'm gonna grab him as soon as this conversation's over. So, because it's spooky season, I want to name three things that athletes you see right now, and maybe I'll chime in too with stuff, but three things that athletes are afraid of right now that you see a lot of.
Hmm.
And either we're going to debunk why they shouldn't be afraid of it or how they can not be afraid of it anymore. So I just did this with my virtual athletes and it was kind of fun to see their answers. But what are you seeing?
From a very practical standpoint, they're afraid of the ball.
Wait, like go deeper, please. Like, what
I
does that
just
mean?
I just have a lot of young players, and I think it's part of, unfortunately, it's part of that age group, that 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old age group where, kids are just starting to pitch. And, we went from machine pitch or coach pitch, and now kids are pitching, and not a lot of strikes are being thrown. And so two things are happening. A, I'm scared to get hit because I've gotten hit. And then B, because not a lot of strikes are being thrown, their ability to develop that awareness and being able to recognize what a strike is and when I need to swing and where I need to make contact, it kind of goes away because their first inclination is this isn't going to be a strike.
Mm. And then when it
And
is
so
a
we're
strike, they're not ready.
right, they're not ready. So like that ability to like recognize, yes, 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 it's a strike and then swing instead of no, 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 oh, it's a strike. I think that comes more from, being afraid of the ball. That's number one. Number two, I just know a lot of kids that are first they're afraid of success.
Mm. Nobody talks about this. What does that mean?
They're afraid of success. They're afraid of being the guy. They're afraid of being the girl. They're afraid to be counted on. And it's, again, the beautiful thing about the sports that we play is we are playing the failing sport. No matter how good you are still going to fail. So let's embrace that and like take it for the challenge that it is instead of shying away from it.
But like, why are players afraid of success?
I think because,
I don't think I dealt with a ton of that, to be honest. But I do see players the same way.
but I also think that we have an inflated idea of what success and championships and winning is today. Because, again, go back to social media. There's a tournament every weekend. You can have a winner of a tournament every weekend. You don't have to play yourself into the World Baseball Championship. You get invited to the World Baseball Championship.
Yeah. Which
So
is
now
why I
you've been
really
in.
like Alliance Fast Pitch right now. You have to win to get anywhere. So keep going.
Yes,
Yeah.
like as it should be.
Right.
Like you don't just get invited to a tournament because you have a brand name across your chest.
Hmm.
Um, we could do a whole episode on that. So I think the problem is that because because coaches and leaders aren't showing what true success is, it is about the wins and it is about the winning the tournament and it is about the fake ring,
Yeah.
then I just have so much added pressure on myself to have to go and perform.
Mm.
And so that's why, I pose the question to a lot of coaches all the time is where are the practice games? If you have a player who is A, terrible pitching with the bases loaded, and you have a hitter who is B, terrible hitting with the bases loaded, we should have a practice dedicated to just pitching and hitting with bases loaded.
Mm.
Because again, I'm putting myself in that environment. I'm choosing to be put in that environment and I have to perform. I have to learn how to perform in that environment just based on the fact that I want to be successful, not because there's an external force that makes me need to be successful.
What's cool
And
about
so,
that too is you're going to find players that they love that and then they go show up and do great. And then you're going to have players who
mm-hmm,
like see that happening and they're like, I want that.
yeah,
And they're going to try to repeat what allows that other kid to do what they're doing too. Okay, sorry.
right.
That was my little tangent.
No, and so that's what I mean. It's like we're creating the environment without the extra pressure back here of, well, if I don't perform, we won't win.
Mm.
If I don't perform, I'll be on the bench. So if we've never practiced how to be successful in a non-pressure packed environment, please don't be surprised when we're not successful in the pressure packed environment.
And I know you're working on that in the cages every day with your
Every
kids.
day.
Okay, before you get into the third, can I get Cooper?
Yeah,
Okay, be right back. Okay. Have you thought about the third thing athletes are afraid
yeah.
of?
I
Okay.
think they're afraid to be leaders
Why?
because they're afraid to they're afraid to not be liked.
Mm.
You know, I I challenged one of my ninth graders the other day. He's, playing on a team right now, and the team just doesn't show up to play at all. They say they want to play, but they don't. And so I challenged him to call a team meeting before their next practice because he gave me the example that he had posed a question in the team group chat and nobody answered it.
Mm.
And so I look, man, I said, you got some ammunition right there. I said, go in and say, hey, you all ignored me on the group chat. You can't ignore me when I'm standing right here. Ask the same question. Are you sure you want to play this weekend? Do we even deserve to play? What makes you think that we can just show up and play every weekend without putting in the work, without putting in the time, without putting in the effort? Where's our fire? I challenged him to do that. And you could see the uncomfortableness in him. And I said, look, man, I call him itchy moments. I said, you got that itchy moment right now? He said, yeah. I go, that it tells you exactly that you need to do it.
Mm.
Um, he did it at like 25%. I'll give him credit because he tried,
He
but
tried.
it was again. And so when I saw him the next time, I was like, what was it? He goes, I was afraid that they weren't going to like me afterwards. And I said, leaders don't always care if people like them or not. Leaders
Boom.
know in their heart and they know in their gut that this is the right thing at the right time.
But that also goes with your alignment and
Mm-hmm.
standards that you had mentioned in leadership.
Mm-hmm.
It's like clearly this team does not have the same standards
No,
because they don't know where they're headed.
exactly.
And I also know that great teams are player led, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
player that's going to really transform what happens, not just the coach,
That's right.
which the
Player
coach
led,
can,
coach supported.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right. So good. You're so chill. Hi.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was
So
really mad. He
yeah,
was squirming before I grabbed him. But
yeah. I mean, whether it's parents, coaches, leaders, players, like we all have a next level inside of us. I mean, we really do. It's a matter of being able to sit down and really take some fearless, courageous inventory of our life and where we are and who we want to be to understand what those non-negotiables are, to
mm,
understand what those basics are, and then, make a list of inventory questions that you want to ask yourself that is your first level of accountability. Before you even ask a friend to hold you accountable, before you ask a colleague to hold you accountable, before you ask your spouse to hold you accountable. And it's being able to just, like I said, just fearlessly put in that work over and over and over again. Um, because so many people they end up quitting. So now it's just a matter of, are you willing to outlast the others?
now's a great time to do it too, as we approach off season.
Off season. That's right.
Let's get our households aligned. Let's get our teams
Mm-hmm.
aligned. Let's get ourselves aligned. So, what's like the lowest hanging fruit that each of us can go do after we listen to this to go take inventory on on those things?
I would say the first thing would be, I have this Venn diagram that I always hand out, and it's two circles. One circle says things that matter. The other circle says things I can control. And in the middle where it intersects is my focus. And we just don't give ourselves the opportunity to do that because there are so many things that matter, but there are so many things that I am not in control of. So really seeing where the things intersect, and it really kind of gives me this sense of encouragement because all the things that I thought I needed to have on my plate, I actually don't need that many. So that's how I find out what my basics are.
Mm.
That's how I find out what my non-negotiables are.
Can I selfishly ask you to send me that?
Of course.
And then maybe we'll hand it out. Is it like PDF format?
Yeah, I make a PDF.
Because I
I'll
might
have
I'll
one.
add it to the show notes for everybody who wants to do this
Yeah,
listening. Because again, okay, so YouTube people will be able to see this. But
yeah.
yeah, you can
But I'll
create
send that.
this.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
send that out. I'll send in the
Okay.
PDF.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love this. No, typically past episodes we've done, we've broken down just hitting to the extreme, which like I still think are phenomenal episodes. But I think
Mm-hmm.
this new side of our conversation is probably my favorite because if you're not in alignment with what your goals are and figuring out what makes you tick, then all the XYZs that we do in a hitting lesson, they're not going to stick and they really won't do much.
And who you're surrounding yourself with. It's one thing to be on a team, but outside of that team, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Mm.
Who's in your circle? Who's in alignment with you on those? Who's in alignment with your goals? Who's holding you back from your goals?
I just saw this graphic on Twitter. You might have seen it. Maybe not. But it was like a molded strawberry touching a perfectly just ripe strawberry, and it was like so easily just like seeping in all the mold into the
Mm-hmm.
next one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point, was like if you're surrounded by someone who's pulling away from, your best self, then
Mm-hmm.
you're slowly declining and soon will be moldy.
Yeah.
Um, but it does matter. And it
And that's
matters how
another
close
thing.
those people are too.
Absolutely. And it's another thing helping people realize I don't care whether you're an athlete or, someone sitting in the audience when I'm talking. We have to get comfortable with the idea that growth does come with goodbyes. Goodbye to your former life, goodbye to your former environment, goodbye to friends. And it's
Hmm.
just growth comes with goodbyes. And when we start to wrap our head around that, and we start to get comfortable with that, and we take the ego out of it and we take the worry out of it, it's super liberating.
I did this a long time ago in an episode, but it was basically taking an audit of who we follow on Instagram. And like if they don't help us align to our, like, we should have categories, right? Like there is a type of entertainment category that sometimes I get on Instagram to get a laugh in, right? But
For
like
sure.
if you're following people and immediately when you see them, you feel this sense of like, what'd you call it? Like that, well, that was like an itch, but like if you feel like it's making you feel less about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
or you don't like what they're putting out, it's not helping you reach your goals, it doesn't hurt to unfollow them. And if you're really, especially females, if you're really scared that if you unfollow them, they're going to see it, just mute them.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are certain people on Instagram that I have muted and they are high level in softball, but they do not make me feel good about what I'm doing because of the season
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in currently.
Yeah.
They are muted on my account because I don't want to see what they're doing when they're not in the struggle bus of two kids in diapers with a 6 month old. Like they're getting stuff done in a time where like I can get stuff done, but not at that rate right now.
Absolutely.
And it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. So unfollow or mute
Mm-hmm.
those people because the season that you're in, like we need to start embracing the season that we're in, including myself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe that's another thing we can do is like take an audit inventory of who we're following. It's liberating, like you said,
It is.
truly. Great combo, Chris. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
good stuff. I
this.
appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll come back on and we'll talk about more things. Like what you said needs to be an entire episode. But
Mm-hmm.
um can you remind people where to follow you and what you're up to right now?
Yes. You can follow me Instagram at Chris Vasami. You can get connected with me on LinkedIn. Same thing, Chris Vasami, Vasami. And in addition to continuing to train athletes, I've been fortunate enough for the last 2 years to be able to get on the road and be able to go make impact anywhere from high schools to colleges, all the way to associations and um, corporations. Being able to hop out and give my keynotes on personal growth and personal development, and the ability to take some fearless inventory of your life, and also be able to do some fun workshops where we really dig into our ability to take that inventory in our life. And I put people through a series of questions, and we come out the other side with a list where they feel comfortable and more importantly confident and convicted in being able to find out what their next level is.
I love it. And one of my favorite things that you do on social media is remind people that you don't have to share every single second of your day in order for it to count.
Hmm.
Like give me an example of like one of your funny things that you'll post.
um Yeah, no, I forgot my watch during my workout today. Hopefully my body still got the benefit.
That happens to me all the time. Like if I go on a walk and my watch doesn't track it, I'm like, dang it, it's not going to show me that I got my 30 minutes of workout in. But I'm pretty sure my body's still happy that I went out and walked.
Yeah.
So funny. I love it. Yeah. So if you want to laugh, but also a reality check every once in a while, and also some motivation, definitely go follow Chris. One of my favorite follows.
Yeah. And
All right,
always,
man.
please, as always, please, anybody reach out, connect. That's what this is about.
Mm-hmm. You're the best.
I appreciate
And I'm taking notes on parenting for me too.
it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, y'all.